Welcome. Excited excited to host this event here with Xavier, and yeah, really looking forward to our Multipliers workshop for startup CEOs. And yeah, a couple things as we get started. So we have a chat option. If you click the chat app, or the chat icon, feel free to introduce yourself. Share a little bit about what you're working on along the way. We also have a Q&A tab where you can either insert text-based questions, or video Q&A will be a hand raise where you can come up and ask a question directly, and come on stage, unmute, and ask a question to us. And yeah, basically, this is an event put on by both Prepare for VC and Boston New Technology, where Prepare for VC is our it's a startup support network where basically we have three different sections. We have a community component, a cohort component, and a consulting component. So community, we do a lot of events. We have a free platform. I'll plug into the chat as well, where everybody can meet and interact with each other. Cohorts, we have a virtual accelerator program. We actually just kicked off a new cohort with yesterday. And consulting, we do one-on-one packages to help startup entrepreneurs get to the next level in their business. The second group is Boston New Technology. We're a co-organizer for a tech and startup big meetup and event group that was launched over 10 years ago in the Boston area, and host different workshops, panel events, as well as startup showcase events where companies can come out, demo what they're working on, and get feedback from the startup community. So great to have both audiences out here today, and see some familiar and new faces. And yeah, looking forward to Xavier's presentation. Yeah, we've been working together for a while now, gone out to his CEO book clubs too. And I know this chat in particular was inspired by a book called Multipliers. And, I read the book. Yeah, great. Really love the themes throughout it. Xavier runs a company called Ambrose Growth that helps companies scale to the next level in their business. And I'll let him, give an introduction and get us started here. But yeah, really excited to hear everything he's presenting. I'll be monitoring the chat if you want to ask questions throughout. We can make this as interactive as possible. So yeah, Xavier, there'll be the third icon on the bottom. We'll let you screen share, and I'll let you take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you very much for organizing this and for having me. Thank you, everyone in the audience. Hello, Puck. I can see your chat. So today's topic is one of my favorite ones. The question is, who are you? Are you a genius, or are you a genius maker? A few years ago, I met a CEO, brilliant woman, who told me, I don't know what's wrong with my team. I have a team of very smart people, but it looks like they don't give me their full potential. I don't know what's wrong with them. And I spoke with her team, and there was nothing wrong with them. There was something wrong with her. And the issue is, she was a genius with 1,000 helpers, and she didn't realize it. And I see that on a regular basis. So my name is Xavier. I'm a business growth coach. So what I do is I work with CEOs who are frustrated by the way the company is growing. So typically they've grown successfully in the past, and then they've reached a plateau. They don't really know why, and they don't know what to do to get back on track to profitable growth. And one of the main roadblocks of these companies is often in the mind of the CEOs themselves. They are the main roadblock for the company, because it was just like a bottle. The bottleneck is always at the top of a bottle. So the bottleneck of a company is often in the mind of a CEO. So as Jason mentioned, what we are going to talk about today comes from this book called Multipliers it's kind of in reverse, from Liz Wiseman. It is an amazing book based on amazing, rigorous research. So let me get straight into it. All right. All right. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yep. All right. I cannot see you anymore. All right. This is going to be an interactive conversation. So I'll do a bit of talking, and then I'll ask you to reflect and to do a few exercises, and then I'll do a bit of talking again. So do not hesitate to ask questions. I cannot see the chat right now on my screen, but Jason will monitor the chat and will interrupt me when needed.
Exactly.
So the key question that we want to answer today is why are we smart and intelligent around some leaders and not around leaders? What do these the first leaders do that the second type of leaders do not? And that is the whole point of the research in the book Multipliers. Liz Wiseman actually realized there were two types of leaders. On the one hand, there were the multipliers. Multipliers are genius makers, people who amplify the intelligence of others and really take advantage of their full potential. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are diminishers. Diminishers are leaders who rely on their own intelligence much more than on the intelligence of others, and they actually drain the energy and the intelligence of others. And obviously, it is not difficult to realize which of both leaders will grow much faster, which business will grow faster. A leader that can amplify and really take advantage of the intelligence of the people they've hired, or leaders who actually consider them as executioners and not really as thought leaders. So I'm going to ask you to share in the chat a bit of your own experience when you worked with other leaders. It can be in a company setting, it can be teachers that you had at school or in college, or coaches, sport coaches, and so on. So my first question to you is, tell me about your diminishers. So think of a former boss, a former teacher, or person of authority, whatever, that was not as good as a manager. This person would drain your intelligence. So this person was a diminisher. So I have two questions for you. First, how much % of your intelligence or your talent did they get out of you from between 0 and 100%? And what did they do that diminished your energy or your intelligence? What did these people do that diminished your energy or your intelligence? Take a few seconds to think about it, and then put your experience in the chat. And please do not share the name of the diminisher or the manager.
Sure. Yeah, great question. And just double check here. Are we? It looks like we're still on the first slide. Is that correct? Or
oh, sorry. Is there an issue with screen sharing? No, it is not correct. Let me reshare my screen.
Okay.
Is this better? Jason?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, that's better.
All right.
Cool. Yeah, if anybody wants to share in the chat, who are your diminishers, and without naming names, and what did they do?
So let's give them a few seconds, 30 seconds.
Xavier, who are some of your diminishers?
Managers who micromanaged and undermined.
Yep, that's a good one.
All right. So yeah. Well, what else? What did they do to diminish your intelligence?
We have another
Toxic,
one.
narcissistic, very focused on themselves. Absolutely. Thank you. What else? What else did they do? They needed to be the star of the group. Absolutely. It's all about me. I'm the leader. I know how to do things. I feel insecure and I project it on other people. Destructive behaviors. They belittle the team. They stole ideas. Yeah. Dishonest communication. Absolutely. Well, it looks like you've had quite a bit of experience with toxic leaders. It's not always as dramatic as this. But indeed, typically, diminishers are people who drain people's intelligence, who make it all about themselves. They come up with the good ideas. They sometimes steal ideas from their team. And they consider their teams as a bunch of helpers and not a bunch of smart people who can think with them. Now let's go to the second part of the question at the bottom of the slide. So think of a former boss or teacher or coach, anybody of authority, and I'm going to ask you to teach about a specific person. So do not make it general, whatever, it's not about theory, it's about what you experienced. So think of a former boss or teacher who was a very good manager. This person would amplify your intelligence. You actually felt smarter by working with this person. So in short, this person was a multiplier. So first question of how much percent of your intelligence did they get out of you? And what did they do to amplify your energy and your intelligence? So again, take 30 seconds to think about it and then put it in the chat.
Great. Like that.
Willing to support other people's ideas. Yeah, it's not just about their ideas, it's also about other people's ideas and how can I help you be successful? Absolutely. What else? They draw out the positive, even when things go wrong. What can we learn from it and how can we improve? Absolutely. Great listeners. Very good. They understand the team's strengths. Provide opportunities to shine. How can I stretch you and get you and help you shine? And how can I help you grow? Absolutely. Absolutely. These are all great points. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. So they help people grow. Absolutely. So Liz Wiseman in her book did a whole research on what makes the distinction between a diminisher and a multiplier. And she came up with 5 main characteristics of a diminishers and 5 equivalent characteristics of a multiplier. So the basic philosophy of a diminisher is people will not figure out without me. They need me to help them figure it out because I have a big brain, and they don't. So there are 5 disciplines of a diminisher. So one of them, and not all diminishers have all 5 disciplines. This is kind of a representation of the entire world of diminishers. So first, there are empire builders. They hoard resources and underutilize their talents, causing people to atrophy, even smart people. And typically, diminishers are really good at recruiting smart people, but then they cause their brains to diminish. Then you have the tyrant. Tyrant creates a tense, stressful environment that suppresses people's thinking and capability. These are typically the people who are going to shoot you down when you make mistakes. And as a result, you don't want to make mistakes in the future anymore. And as a result, you don't take new initiatives and you diminish yourself. The third type are the know-it-all. These are the people who think that they should know best, that they know best, and that they should know more than their team. And I see that very often with young managers, people who have just been promoted into a manager role. They don't want to be a diminisher, and yet they act like diminishers when they tell me, hey, I'm being very anxious about adding this new responsibility because there are things that my team has to do and that I don't know how to do. And as a result, I don't know how to help them. And the intention is very pure. I want to help my team, and therefore I need to know what they do and how they do things. But in fact, it is a diminishing tendency because it suppresses or it reduces the ability of your team to grow. Then you have the decision makers. Many founders are in this category. The decision makers are people who think that part of their role is to make all the decisions. Sometimes, well, actually on a regular basis, I meet these CEOs who tell me that one of their roles is to make the decisions in terms of strategy, and nobody else in the company is able to make that type of decisions. And then you have the micromanagers, which was one of the profiles that you mentioned, who drive results through their personal involvement and think, if I do not micromanage my team, everything is going to crumble. And that's why I have to work 16 hours a day in order to get the results that I want. Now, these habits lead to short-term results. Typically, the micromanagers, they get results. But the thing is, they get results in the short term. They don't get the long-term growth that they want. And the outcome of these behaviors is that these diminishers get often less than 50% of their team's intelligence. On the other hand, we have the multipliers. And so what Liz did is identify the equivalent characteristics of multipliers. So the base philosophy of a multiplier is people are smart and they will figure it out. The 5 disciplines are first the talent magnets. So they attract talented people and then use them at the highest level of, at the highest point of contribution. Then you have the liberator, which is the opposite of the tyrant. The liberator is going to create an intense environment that pushes people to use their best thinking and work. And you notice the tyrant creates a stressful environment by shutting people down when they make mistakes. The liberator also creates a tense environment. Being a multiplier is not being a fluffy manager that it tries to be nice with everybody. No, multipliers create a tense, demanding environment, but that environment pushes people to get the best of their talent. Then you have the challenger. So a challenger is somebody who is going to help their team stretch. And I was lucky enough to work with a manager who is a great challenger. Every time I had a new project, he would find a way to push me outside of what I thought was possible. He would stretch my responsibilities beyond what I thought was reasonable. And I would tell me, hey, you cannot give me this responsibility. I don't know how to do this. This is too much for me. And every single time he would tell me, hey, you know what? We need somebody to do this. I cannot do this. I know that you can. I trust you. Come to me when you need help. And that gave me a real boost in confidence, and it forced me to give my utmost best. Then you have the debate maker, which is the exact opposite of the decision maker. The decision maker will make all the decisions by themselves. The debate maker will make debates to make sure that we get all the input on the table so that we make much better decisions with everybody's vision. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't make decisions in the end. Sometimes they make the decision. Sometimes someone else on the team makes a decision. But they make sure before the decision that a sound, healthy debate is taking place. And then finally, we have the investor, which is the opposite of the micromanager. The investor gives people ownership of their own work and their own results, and invest in their success. Instead of telling people how they should do every single step of the process, they coach them when needed. They guide them when needed, when people are less comfortable or less experienced with something, and know when to back off and when to move from a guidance role into more of a coaching role from a distance. Now, the difference between the two is that a multiplier will get, on average, about twice the intelligence from their team than a diminisher. That is the power of being a multiplier. And I often speak with these CEOs who tell me that they need more people, they need more resources, and so on. And then we start working on, okay, how can we shift from being less of a diminisher and being a bit more of a multiplier? And all of a sudden, it takes a few months, but at some point, their team flourishes. And starts generating much more results. So we tried, Jerry, good to see you. We tried the screen, the slideshow mode, but it doesn't share on the screen. So I agree with you, but for technical reasons, apparently it is not great. All right. So my apologies for this. Now, the reality, so I'm talking about diminishers and multipliers, and these are, let's be honest, these are two extremes. The reality is the vast majority of us are somewhere in between. Most of us want to be multipliers. We have the best of intentions in mind, but from time to time, we act like accidental diminishers. I don't remember meeting a single person who wanted to be a diminisher, like a very mean person. And I'm pretty sure there are some in the world, but I haven't met them yet. And at the same time, I haven't met the perfect multiplier either. I've met many people who want to be a multiplier, but the perfect multiplier, I haven't met them yet. So the question is, okay, from time to time, we act like a diminisher. How can we identify which accidental diminishing tendencies we have, so that we can catch ourselves when we do that, and so that we can improve. All right. Now, as I mentioned, most of us are accidental diminishers. So we will go through the habits of accidental diminishers, and it might give you the impression that you are bad, that you're not doing your job well. Maybe even that you're not the right person to be the CEO of your company. Do not be hard on yourself. I have to admit, the first time I went through this material, it was a slap in my face. It was really hard because I noticed that some of the things I was doing as a leader were accidental diminishing tendencies. But the thing is, I was doing them on purpose because I thought it was part of my job as the CEO of the company or the president of the company. And so when I realized that these habits were just had a number of negative consequences, I felt lost because I didn't know what else to do. That was how I did things. How else do you want me to do? And that is the cool thing about this methodology, and that is why I love it so much. It tells you right in your face what you do wrong, but it also shares a number of very actionable new habits that you can create to become a better multiplier. And I've tested it myself in conversations with my team, from one week to the other. Okay, I've decided to start doing this new habit that we are going to share to share later. And I noticed the unbelievable impact on my team. So let's get into it. There are 9 accidental diminishing tendencies, and the next 9 slides will be about each of these tendencies. What I'm going to ask you to do is, on a scale from 1 to 10, rate how often you do these things. And again, it's not a problem to do these things. It becomes a problem if you do it too often, and we will see how to correct the behavior. So take a sheet of paper, open a Word document, whatever you want, and start writing the name of the accidental diminishing tendency, and then a number next to it for each of the slides. All right, let's get started. So the first accidental diminishing tendency is the idea fountain. So the idea, people who are idea fountains constantly generate new ideas. They never stop. They have 1,000 ideas per minute. And the intention is to stimulate others to have brilliant ideas as well, and to help the company move forward. The outcome, the negative consequence, is that they overwhelm others, because other people don't know which ideas you want them to work on. It's like you have 10 new ideas per day. What do you want me to focus on? Like yesterday, you had 10 other new ideas per day. Now you have 10 new. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to stop working on the 10 from yesterday? And out of the 10, I don't even know which one I should start with. So it comes across as extremely overwhelming. And on top of that, it shuts down other people around you. One of my clients is actually exactly that. He's an idea fountain. In one of the conversations with his head of sales and head of project management, we had a conversation about how to increase sales. And I expected the head of sales to come up with ideas. I mean, it's kind of the job of the head of sales. But he didn't. He shut up. And I quickly understood why. Half a second after the debate started about, okay, how can we increase sales, the CEO started shooting ideas. And I kid you not, in 2 minutes, he had 20 new ideas. And then, so it lasted for 10 minutes, and we had a long list of ideas. And then at the end of that monologue, I asked the head of sales, hey, what do you think? And the guy said, I think these are brilliant ideas, period. And he shut up. And it was clear at that time that he might have had ideas. He probably had ideas. I mean, the guy is smart, but he had grown this habit of not bringing up ideas because the ideas from the CEOs first were pretty good, but also so overwhelming. I mean, there were enough ideas on the piece of paper for him to be busy for the next 2 years. And so adding ideas would be like, oh shit! I mean, I have enough work. This is enough. So this is the first accidental diminishing tendency, the idea fountain. The second accidental diminishing tendency is the CEO who is always on. So the guy or the gal, when they enter the room, everybody knows that the CEO is in the building. Always engaged, present, energetic, contributing, always has something to say, and they want to be helpful. The intention is to create infectious energy, to share their point of view and to help everybody get better. But the outcome is that they consume all the space, all the oxygen, and they drain other people's energy, who then tune out. And when I say they tune out, it is literal. They say, hey, when the CEO enters the room, I just try to shut my brain off so that I can keep working on my work, and I don't listen to the CEO. They literally turn out their own CEOs. The third accidental diminishing tendency is the rescuer. This is something that I see with many CEOs. That is one of my main accidental diminishing tendencies. So rescuers don't like to see their team struggle. And they want to make sure that their teams are successful by putting out fires, by protecting their team when they fail or after they fail. When my team would fail, like, they would commit to doing something and then they would not do it. And at the next team meeting, it was obvious that they hadn't done their job. My first reaction was to find excuses for them. My real job was to hold them accountable, but that's not what I was doing. I was finding excuses. I was saying, okay, it's not a big deal, can you do it next week? It's not, everything is okay, that kind of things. The outcome was that people become dependent. People, in my case, stopped working on their priorities. Because you know what? If I don't do my job, it's okay. Xavier will protect me at the next meeting. So why bother? Another consequence is people stop solving their own problems because somebody else will say, their boss will save them energy, will save them anyway. So that is, in my case, the one that hurt me the most when I heard it, because I was a rescuer on purpose. I thought that part of my job was to help my team and rescue them when they needed it, and that's when I realized that actually my rescuing habit had a number of negative consequences, not only on the company, because people were not being held accountable, but also on the people themselves, who were not evolving as fast as they could. All right, the next accidental diminishing tendency is the pace setter. So the pace setter is someone who is going to set the standard. Set the standard in terms of number of hours worked, in terms of quality, in terms of achievements. Now, your role as the CEO is to set a high bar. Let's be very clear about this. But the pace setter just takes it to the next level and takes it to a level that is way too high. They set a high standard for quality and pace, and they want to show that they roll up their sleeves. But the thing is, others then become spectators. Instead of following the CEO in the strive for improvement, the stretch is just too big, and they become spectators. They say, you know what? Why bother? I mean, it's not even worth telling the CEO that this is too high. You know, let's just, it's almost 5. We'll go home. We'll have a nice evening, and tomorrow we'll go back to work and be a spectator of our own lives. Simply because they cannot keep up. All right. The next one is the rapid responder. So the rapid responder is, like the name says, a CEO who is super fast whenever something happens. A typical example is the CEO who is on vacation and still answers emails, and answers emails even faster than the team that is not on vacation. And the intention is very good. We need to move fast. We need to solve problems. If a client emails us, we need to be fast on the ball. But the outcome is that the organization actually moves slower because of the traffic jam of this one CEO trying to solve all the problems in the world. I have a client exactly like that. He went on vacation at the end of December. He promised me it would be a real vacation. And guess what he did? Every morning for 30 minutes, he would be on his emails. What his team told me is a couple of things. Number one, he promised to be on vacation. He clearly was not fully on vacation. Number two, he would he would respond to emails from clients before we could even react. And then he would yell at us because we were not fast enough. Just go on vacation. Just leave us alone. So the consequence of a rapid responder is just this creation of slowness and passivity among the other team members. I think seventh accidental diminishing tendency is the optimist. So the optimist sees everything through rosy glasses. Nothing is a big problem. We will solve every single problem we have. And life is good, and they believe that it is part of their job to create that positive atmosphere where problems are kind of a detail. I used to work with someone like that. He was a extremely smart person, but nothing was a problem for him, and the result was I didn't know whether he understood, whether he prioritized problems properly. Because some of the things that, some of the issues we had were tiny problems, indeed, but some of the things were really big problems. And it looked like he didn't acknowledge these problems. And so I wasn't sure whether I could trust his judgment. It also forced me to play the role of the pessimistic, which I don't necessarily enjoy, but I had to, because I felt that if I didn't play that role, nobody else in the room would offer the argument of, no, not everything is going to be okay, and we need to change a couple of things here, otherwise we're going to get straight into the wall. Next, we move to the protector. So the protector is a mama bear. So we talked about the rescuer. The rescuer rescues the team after they have failed. The protector is going to prevent failures before they failed. They shield their people from the hazard of corporate life and from the hazard of the outside world. And the intention is extremely pure. I want to keep my people safe from political forces, from clients yelling at them, from everything that could go wrong. But the outcome, obviously, is that people don't learn to fend for themselves. They don't learn to fight for themselves. And by doing this, you prevent them from developing themselves. And it has a real cost for them because they don't develop themselves as fast as they could, and for the organization because there are some talents here in your team that do not contribute as much as they could to the organization. And then finally we have the strategist. Almost finally, the strategist is the big thinker, the one who is going to cast a compelling vision for the future. I also worked for someone like that. He was kind of a type of strategist. He was a charismatic leader who would lay out an extremely convincing, compelling vision based on absolutely no data, but it was so compelling that we were like, wow, this is cool. This is really cool. But the issue that it generated is because we didn't know where the vision came from. It was so well laid out. We didn't know where the vision came from, that when we had to resolve the many conflicts that come from strategy, hey, should we focus on this, or what are the priorities, all that kind of things that you need to do when working on strategy, we didn't know how to solve these issues because we didn't have the background information of where this brilliant sounding strategy came from. So we were left wondering, kind of interpreting the words of the big boss rather than using our brain to make rational decisions about what was best for the company, given the strategy that we had developed. And then the final diminishing tendency is the perfectionist, and that is also one of my accidental diminishing tendencies. These managers want excellence, and they love the feeling of getting something perfect. And especially when it comes to communication with clients, I love it when things are perfect, and it drives me crazy when we don't communicate properly with our clients. So the intention is very good. I want to help people produce outstanding work that they can be proud of, and that clients are proud of, so that are happy with, so that they come back. So that they come back, and I'm going to give you that feedback in a constructive fashion, so that you know how to improve. The real impact, however, is that people receive tons of feedback, and it never stops, and it's feedback about details that becomes at some point so much that they feel disheartened. It's never good enough. I'm not even going to try to do my best here, because he's going to complain again about something that is not the way he wants. So here again, when I realized that actually my perfectionism was had a number of negative consequences, I started keeping my big mouth shut, which is super hard for me, because it means that there are things that happen in the organizations that I lead that I don't like. And sometimes I even receive feedback from clients about, hey, this is not good. And I knew this was not going to be good. But sometimes, this is just the cost I have to pay. And what I notice is it makes my team happier. I still give them feedback, but I prioritize my feedback. When I have 10 feedback points in front of me, I select the one most important feedback point, and I share that with the team, with the person, and I just keep the 9 others less important pieces of feedback for myself. It makes them happier, and actually it helps them grow faster, because they know the top priority that they should work on, instead of the 10 priorities that are actually not priorities that I used to give them. All right. Which questions do you have about the 9 accidental diminishing tendencies that we've just discussed? If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Always on. All right. So always on, let me get back to that slide. Always on is the person who is full of energy. And they think that showing their energy is going to rub off other people, and other people are going to gain energy from that. As soon as they enter a room or the office, people know that they are around. They typically talk a lot. But the impact that it has on other people is that it is just annoying, and it is disturbing. They consume a lot of space, a lot of people's time, a lot of people's energy, and it forces people to shut them out so that they can focus on their own work instead of focusing on this CEO that actually makes a lot of noise. Is this an answer to your question, Alicia? All right. So if you have more questions, do not hesitate to ask them. What I'm going to ask you is, based on the notes you took of the 9 accidental diminishing tendency, my question is, what is your number 1 accidental diminishing tendency? And once you have it, put it in the chat. So I'll show this slide with all 9 tendencies. What is the one that you do most often? Optimist, perfectionist. Very good. What else? Always on. Very good. Mine is rescuer, protector, idea fountain. Very good. So we have, I don't know, 6 or 7 input here, and you see that we are all different. We all have a different accidental diminishing tendency. Now, the goal now is not to become perfect. Perfect is boring. But the goal is to shift the balance towards a little bit more multiplier moments and a little bit fewer diminishing moments. And the question is obviously how to do this, which is exactly what we are going to discuss right now. Now, let me ask you a question before we go into kind of the recipe. Shape. I'm reading Jerry's input. Yeah, looking out for potential damage. Yeah, I can see that. I would encourage you to go a bit deeper and to think about your relationship with your team, Jerry. When you interact with your team or the people around you, so not patients, which of these tendencies do you show most often? And I have to say, it is a conversation that is worth having with your team as well. I did this self-reflection myself, and then I asked my team what they thought, and the responses were actually sometimes different than mine, and that was a very good input in terms of self-awareness. For instance, perfectionism. I didn't realize I had that. I know I like perfection, but I didn't realize it had the negative consequences that are described in this accidental diminishing tendency. I thought I only had the positive aspects of perfectionism, And so it is based on my team's input that I decided to keep my mouth shut a bit more often.
No, I like that, because I was thinking, for mine, that it would probably be pieces of different ones, where, the one that probably stood out the most was like the responding one, where I don't really feel the need to respond to everything right away, but it's also hard to fully disconnect and, go on vacation like you were talking about, and not check in on our Slack messages or emails or things like that. So, seeing kind of a piece of that, a piece of some of the other ones, and it's putting all those together.
Now, and you're making a very good point. So these accidental diminishing tendencies are linked to our strengths, and they are kind of the other extreme of our strengths. A perfectionist, well, being a perfectionist can be a strength in that somebody, people very detail oriented, which is needed in a number of situations. But when we push that to the extreme, that is when it becomes an issue, a weakness, and it becomes an accidental diminishing tendency. Jason just mentioned rapid responder. I have to say, I give a lot of these talks to multiple types of groups. Jason is one of the best organized event organizers that I know. And it's a strength. I really appreciate that. But I can also see that the extreme of being super organized is to be a rapid responder. So these accidental diminishing tendencies are kind of a wake-up call for us to say, hey, I can use my strength up to a certain point, and if I go beyond that, then it is going to be an issue. All right. So before we move into recipes, based on what you know about multipliers, and somebody made the comment earlier, I know that you haven't read the book. That's fine. But based on what you know about multipliers, what is the number one characteristic of a multiplier? And you have 4 choices, and I'll ask you to cast your vote in the chat. So is the most important characteristic of a multiplier A, seeing and using the genius of others; B, intellectual curiosity; C, creating a safe environment where people can take risks; and D, listening? Which one of these 4 is the most important characteristic of a multiplier? No, you have to pick one. All right, this is good. This is good. So I see a little bit of the full alphabet here. Every single one of these characteristics is important to be a multiplier. But the one that is the primary one, the one that drives or can help drive the other characteristics, is actually B, intellectual curiosity. Because intellectual curiosity will help you see the genius in others, will help you ask better questions, which will help you create a safe environment where people can take risks, and will get you to listen more intently, because you want to learn from other people. So if there's only one thing that you want to do differently, it is how can I become a little bit more curious? And we are talking here about incremental changes. We're not talking about a revolution. We are talking about an evolution. All right. So let's get into kind of recipe mode. And this is way too small to read. I completely understand this. But I'm giving this overview, which is kind of the table of content of the next part of the presentation. So what you can see here is on the horizontal axis at the top, you have the 9 accidental diminishing tendencies. And on the vertical axis, you have a number of multiplier habits that you can start doing. And the cool thing is each of these multiplier habits is linked to at least one of the accidental diminishing tendencies. So if you are an idea guy, which is the first one here, then one multiplier habit that you can start doing is ask the questions, which we will review together, or give it back, which is another practice that we will work together. This is a tool that I use a lot with my clients. I would encourage you to do that as well. You can find it in the book if you decide to buy the book and to read it, or you can simply Google it online to know what to do. Now, I'm going to ask you, so now we're going to go through some of these tools, and I'm going to ask you to do some of these tools with me. And every time I'll mention for which accidental diminishing tendency it is applicable, so that if you have that accidental diminishing tendency, you know that you definitely need to work on this. All right. Very good. So let's start with questions based. I just mentioned intellectual curiosity is the most important habit that you can create to become a better multiplier. Let's talk about asking better questions. So you remember one of the characteristics of a diminisher is that they make decisions themselves because they know best. Whereas a multiplier is going to organize a debate and ask questions to have better information and tap into the genius of other people. Now, asking better questions is a very good remedy for a number of accidental diminishing tendencies that some of you have. ID fountain, always on, strategist, rescuer, rapid responder, strategist, and perfectionist. And now that I'm going through the list, it's actually for every single one of the accidental diminishing tendency. So what does it mean to ask better questions? Well, it means a couple of things. One is to lead meetings by asking only questions. So instead of saying what you think, or instead of making statements, you only ask questions. And I would strongly encourage you to test this, even if it sounds completely stupid and actually not very practical. The last time I did that was yesterday with a group of clients. We did a role play, 5 minutes per role play. There was a person with a problem, and the manager of that person. So it's a two people role play, and the manager could only ask questions. And before we started this exercise, the people were like, "This is crazy. I mean, how is this going to work?" And I made it even worse. I gave them only 7 questions, 7 very specific questions. They could only pick questions from that list. And they did that, and what they realized is that they came to helping the other person solve their problem much faster than if they had put the own genius brain on the table and if they had advised the other person. One of my clients is also an idea fountain and always on. I mean, this is kind of the winning duo, and he's doing that. He's forcing himself to do that. The outcome is, in some meetings, it just doesn't work. And it says, for these meetings with these specific people in this context, I will just not do this anymore. And one of these contexts is one of his team members is very new, and the guy just needs information. All right, that works. But in other meetings with other team members, it works really well. And what he notices is it forces his team to use their brain. And what he notices is, especially at the beginning, they would come up with an issue, kind of waiting for the CEO to solve their problem, and then he would ask a question like, for instance, "Hey, what do you think the solution is to this problem?" And then there would be 30 seconds of silence, and the team member would be like, "Well, I'm asking you to solve my problem," and the CEO is like, "No. I want you to use your brain. What do you think is a solution to your problem?" And then the guy was like, well, okay, let me think about it. And then after 30 seconds or 1 minute, the guy started developing options. And then the CEO would ask, "Okay, that's a good option. What else is another good option?" "Oh, what, you want me to come up with a different solution for my problem?" "Yes, indeed." All right, so this is a second solution for the problem. Okay, and what else? Oh, again? All right, this is a third potential solution for my problem. And then in 5 or 10 minutes, the team member would come up with, I don't know, 5 different ways of solving their problem. And then they would have a conversation about, okay, Kim, these are the 5 options. Which one is the best one? And what he realized is that this led to much better solutions to problems, because in his old habit, he would hear a problem. In half a second, he would come up with a solution, and he would just share that without thinking of additional options. But now that he forces himself to play the role of a coach rather than of a solution provider, they come up with actually much better options, because the team member knows the situation better than the CEO, and they come with several options, which makes it a richer environment. So I would encourage you to do that, to play that game. Force yourself to only ask questions in some meetings, and I would even encourage you to select right now a meeting where you want to start testing this way of doing. And I would suggest to do it this week, to pick a meeting this week and just do it. Just go with it. So being a multiplier, part of being a multiplier is learning to ask questions so that you can learn from your team members. And that is why, coming back to intellectual curiosity, the goal of asking questions is obviously to help people use their brain, but the motivation for you is, hey, I want to learn from this person. I know I can learn something that I don't know right now, and I want to learn, and I'm going to ask questions so that I learn new ways of solving problems. And so I use this as well, and I'm always amazed by how creative the solutions are once people start using their brain. I'm human, obviously. So whenever somebody comes with a problem to me, I have a solution in my mind after 2 seconds, and I have to refrain myself from giving this solution by asking a question. And then after 10 minutes, I realized that the other people often come up with much better solutions than what I had in mind initially. So, and that is my personal incentive. It is this intellectual curiosity to learn from my team members. The second habit is to discover and utilize your genius and your team genius. And I'm going to ask you to do this exercise for yourself, but I'm going to ask you to do this exercise for your team members as well after this webinar. We'll do it for yourself just as kind of as a practice. So each of us have a native genius, something that we do very naturally without much effort, and that we don't even realize that it is a strength. In fact, it is often something that we think that everybody else has, but it kind of drives us crazy that others just don't see it this way. For instance, people who are very detail-minded, some people who are very detail-minded, kind of perfectionists, so it sometimes drives them crazy that people are not as perfectionist as they are, and that people don't see the mistakes that they see, and they think that there's something wrong with the other people. The truth is, there's nothing wrong with the other people. There's something good with themselves. It is a strength that they have, and that the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world, does not have. My wife is extremely good at simplifying things. She can take a pretty complex information and make it look extremely simple. My strength is making things complex. So you can see that we sometimes have a little bit of conflicts there. But the way she frames it, or before we had these conversations, is, I don't know. I mean, this is so simple. I don't know why people make things complex. It is really not difficult to simplify these things. And the thing is, it is not that the rest of the world has a problem. It is that it is her strength, and the rest of the world is just normal. She's just much better than all of us at simplifying things. So here's the exercise I'm going to ask you to do on your sheet of paper. The first question I have for you is to take 1 minute to identify your native genius. So your native genius is something that you excel at doing very naturally. You do it without conscious effort. And by the way, other people know that they can completely rely on you for that kind of things. So take 30 seconds, 60 seconds to put on your sheet of paper what your native genius is. And when you're ready, I'll ask you to put it in the chat. And Jason, you can prepare too, because I will ask you the question too.
Sounds good.
So I'll begin the series of sharing native geniuses. So my native genius is tenacity. And for a very long time, I never considered that as a strength. It drove me crazy that people would give up so easily. And I thought there was something wrong with them, until I realized that they were completely normal. I was just the not normal guy who was just much more tenacious than the rest of the world. But I never, than most of the rest of the world. But I never considered that as a strength until I went through this exercise. So we're not talking about competencies here. It's not about being good at Excel or whatever software. It's about this natural genius that you've had probably since you were born. Discovery, very good. That's a great native genius. Organizing, very good, Alicia. Thank you very much. Exploring, very good. Technical content reviews. So I would suggest to dig deeper. What do you do really, really well about doing these reviews? Jerry, creativity in problem solving. Very good. All right. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much. Jason, what is your native genius?
Yeah, I would say need to simplify the wording around this a little bit more, but kind of shifting from the features to the functions. So understanding or helping entrepreneurs figure out what value they're providing rather than what features they're providing.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. All right. Now, my next question to you is number 3 on the slide here. Is take it to the next level. So you have identified your native genius, and you probably have more than one native genius. But let's stick with this one for now. What can you do in your business to better leverage your native genius? To use it more frequently. So how can you organize your work differently? Are there things that you should delegate to others so that you can tap more often into your native genius? Are there projects that you should be more in charge and not delegate because they are there's a really good match with your native genius. So take 1 minute to think about it. What can you do differently in your business life to better and more often tap into your native genius? All right, then when you're ready, you can share it in the chat. What is one thing that you want to do differently to better leverage your native genius? And I'll start. Once I finally realized that tenacity was just one of my strengths, I did a number of things. Number one, I stopped getting upset every time people were not as tenacious as myself, and that saved me a lot of energy, and it improved my relationship with a lot of people. Yeah, Jerry, I get your frustration, but we tried it didn't work. The second thing that I did is I put myself in roles where I'm the guy in charge of holding people accountable, because I know that I will not let things slip. And so I delegate things, that better utilizes other people's native geniuses, and I'm in charge of kind of making sure that the timing of projects gets respected. Identify who needs to be in the room. Yeah, very good. So what is one thing that you want to do differently in your business to better utilize your native genius? And I'm asking for something very practical. It can be a different way of organizing the work. It can be changing roles and responsibilities on your team. Stop overthinking my decisions once I've organized my plan. Very good. What else? All right. Become, I guess, more in charge of overview of tech reports than in the past. What else? Exercise more patience. I'm not sure that I understand what it means. What would you do differently? I mean, it's easy to say, but what I want here is, practically speaking, what would you do differently? Perks start going deeper instead of wider. Yeah, try to be a bit more specific, but I like the direction of it. Jason, what will you do to better utilize your own native genius?
It's a good question. Yeah, I'd say, part of it, I think you touched on earlier, was the more, you can ask questions and get people's own inputs first, then you can kind of come in and, take that simplification or overview of, what everyone's ideas are and where you can go next from there. So, I think
so the question is, and you don't need to answer now, but the question is, knowing that, how can you organize your team differently so that the team and the members can benefit from your native genius. What can you do differently in the way the work is organized? And maybe you can discuss that with Alicia, who is really good at organizing. All right. So thank you very much for this. The next step is do this with your team. So the way you do this is you just write down the names of your team members on a sheet of paper, and then you spend 5 minutes identifying their native genius, the one thing that they do much better than the rest of the world and better than you. And everybody has one. If you do not find any for one person, it is because you haven't looked deep enough. It is something you can do alone or that you can do collectively with your team. And it's always fun to have the input from everybody about the kind of the biggest strength of each team member. The advantage of doing that as a team is most often people don't really believe that they have that one strength for themselves because it is kind of a blind spot. And when they hear from you and from a couple of other colleagues that they are really good at that, then they realize, oh wow, I didn't know that. I thought it was just normal. I thought that everybody had that. So do that as the next step. And the second step is what we just did for yourself, which is, hey, knowing everybody's native genius, how can we organize the work differently so that we better tap into the native genius of each of the team members? And when you do that with the same number of people, same resources, you can achieve actually more, and you can do more work, more fun, because people love working on something close to their native genius. All right. So the philosophy is everybody is brilliant at something. Everybody, the smartest person in the room and the stupidest person in the room, they are all brilliant at something. Your job as a leader is to find out what that is. And that is at the core of the job of a multiplier. All right. Now, so in terms of recipes, we talked about asking questions. We talked about finding the native genius of ourselves first, and then the rest of our team. The final point that I want to discuss with you today is learning from mistakes. We all know that we should learn from mistakes. Okay, we get that message. But what I often see is CEOs have this tendency to overemphasize the impact of mistakes, especially mistakes made by other people, not mistakes made by them, but mistakes made by other people. And the whole question is how high is the waterline? And the waterline is a difference. You imagine a ship, sitting in water, and if you make a hole in the hull above the waterline, it is a hole, so it's not super fun, but it's okay. You can just fill the hole, and the ship will be good. If you make a hole below the waterline, that is a giant issue. And the same is true for your company. There is a waterline in your business. If you make a mistake, if one of your colleagues or yourself make a mistake above the waterline, it is not fun, but it is not a big a major issue. If you make a mistake below the waterline, that is a major issue. The question is, where is that waterline? And the tendency of many CEOs and especially founders actually is to put this waterline, or to think that the waterline is way higher than what it truly is. And the reason is, as founders, this business is our baby, and nothing can happen to our baby. We tend to be super protective of our baby, and that's the reason why the waterline is so high. And that's the reason why so many of us are kind of reluctant to other people making mistakes. And even when we think that we are open to mistakes and blah blah, all this management bullshit, we are actually not that open to mistakes. I'm really not a big fan of Amazon, but but Amazon developed this really good concept of two-way doors and one-way doors. So a two-way door is a decision that can be easily reverted with minimum cost and energy. There is cost to reverting the decision, but it's not a big deal. A one-way door is a decision that cannot be reverted. And that is a decision that is below the waterline. But when you think about it, most decisions that we make are actually two-way door decisions. It is not such a big deal if we make a mistake. Only very few decisions are one-way door decisions. They are below the waterline, and they would lead to gigantic issues if a mistake was made. So my question to you now is take 1 or 2 minutes, and on your sheet of paper or on your Word document or wherever you're taking notes, draw this waterline, and then start plotting decisions above or below the waterline. Which of these decisions will be not that problematic, and which decisions will be absolutely problematic? And I'm going to give you a very specific example. Price setting, for instance, is something that many founders consider as a super important decision, and we cannot make a mistake. The truth is, if we set the wrong prices, there is a cost to that. We lose a few deals, or maybe we lose a bit of money if the price is too low. But then we adjust the price once we realize that that the price is too high or too low, and the actual cost of wrong price setting is actually not so big. And so price setting, which is often something that founders want to keep for themselves because it is so important, could actually be delegated to people who will make mistakes, knowing that these mistakes are actually not as impactful as we think they are. So take 1 minute right now, draw your waterline, and plot the decisions above the waterline that are actually not so dramatic if the decisions are wrong, and the mistakes below the waterline that are absolutely dramatic if they are wrong. And keep in mind, obviously, the more decisions above the waterline, the more opportunities for improvement you give your team, because every time there is a mistake is made, obviously you will want them to reflect and to correct the decision so that they don't make it next time. Take 1 minute to do this.
Yeah, I like this. Happy to share what I
All
put
right.
together here. So, I mean, mine kind of the area below the waterline is has to do with current clients and cohort members and already planned events where those are in place and not areas we want to fail in any capacity, but the okay to fail would be new experimental services, other cohort programs, other experimental events we want to test out and see if see where we can expand different offerings.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. And I'm not going to ask everybody to share because of the time constraints, but I would encourage you to go deeper. What would be the consequences if an event went wrong? Like if this event had been a complete disaster, what would be the consequences? Is it something that would kill your organization, or is it something that you can recover from relatively easily? I love what Jerry is saying. Below the waterline is raising money in violation of FDA rules or SEC rules. That is something that can kill your organization. Design decisions and medical design decisions are pretty important. But I agree with you. It is above the waterline, even though it's not something that we want to do. All right. Thank you very much. I see Puck's comment on the previous point. Using predictive index to understand native genius. There are several tools, or many tools to understand our strengths or native genius. Predictive index is one of them. DISC is another one of them. My favorite one to discover the native genius is actually a tool developed by Gallup. It used to be called the Strengths Finder. I think they called it 34 Strengths or whatever fancy name they found. You can find it on gallup.com. It is amazingly accurate in helping people discover their own strengths and also the strengths that they don't have, which are their weaknesses. And what you can do is even do that as a team, so that you can see the complementarities in terms of strengths and how to better organize the team around everybody's strengths. All right, very good. So we talked about a number of things today. We talked about the characteristic, the definition of a multiplier and a diminisher. We talked about the consequences of being a multiplier or being a diminisher. We talked about the five main characteristics of each of them. And then we talked about the 9 accidental diminishing tendencies, knowing that most of us want to be multipliers, have great intentions, but from time to time, accidentally, we act as a diminisher, and that has negative consequences on our teams in terms of development and in terms of business growth. In some cases, these accidental diminishing tendencies are blind spots, and that is where input from our team is welcome. And then we talked about a few tools that can help us shift the balance towards acting a bit more like a multiplier and a bit less like a diminisher. One of these tools was asking more questions. Another tool was discovering our native genius and the native genius of our teams. And the third tool that we've discussed is how can we make more space for mistakes and move decisions from below the waterline to above the waterline so that our team has more freedom to make and learn from their mistakes. So as you think about what we've discussed over the past 90 minutes, I have 2 questions for you, and take 30 seconds to think about it. Number 1, what was most valuable for you today? So in other words, if you forget everything that we've discussed today, except one thing, what is that one thing that you want to remember? That is my first question. My second question is, what is one practical thing that you are going to do differently this week to put this insight into practice? So I'm not asking for a full plan. I'm not asking for many things. I'm not asking for a big thing. I'm just asking for one practical thing that you are going to do differently. So take 30 seconds to think about it. What is most valuable and what is one thing that you want to change? And then we will share. Very good. I see mindful about diminishing, to do run meeting with questions. That is a really good next steps. Ask questions of the team. Thank you. Strengths can turn into weaknesses if you are not cognizant of how they impact those around you. That is a very good insight. Thank you very much for sharing. Everybody has their own genius, and the job of the CEO is to understand the genius and to let the team members take more risks. We are there to coach our team, not think for them. I love how you phrase this. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much for your time today. If you want to continue the conversation, give me a call, send me an email. My contact information is here on the slide. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for your inputs. I've realized that I've pushed you outside of your comfort zone from time to time, and that is part of the game. That is part of the role of being a coach. because it is only by stretching outside of our comfort zones that we evolve and that we improve. Thank you very much, and Jason, the final word is yours.
Let me get unmuted. Yeah, thanks. No, that was a great presentation, and loved all the input and interactivity in the chat. You guys all did a great job on kind of sharing your own experiences and bringing this to each of your organizations. So I just put a couple links in the chat as well with our community and my email. I'm happy to follow up with anybody, and we'll also keep everybody that attended today updated with our new events across Prepare for VC, Boston New Technology, Startup Grind Boston as well, and make sure everybody's up to date. So yeah, if there's anything else we can help with, feel free to reach out. And Xavier, thanks again for a great presentation.
Thank you very much. And I've just put a link in the chat with an article about today's topic if you want to read more about it.
Perfect. And this event link within about 24 hours. So if you go back to it tomorrow, the same link you used to join today will turn into a recording that you can go back and rewatch the whole session or any pieces of the session that you want to. And yeah, we'll also share out updates with the future events as well. So thanks again for joining, and looking forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks.